Microbiome, how to use modafinil. Hi, in this video I'll tell you how to squeeze the most out of modafinil, but it won't just be about that. I'll be talking about the microbiome, which dietary supplements really work for the brain and neurotransmitters, and how to get more serotonin and dopamine even without modafinil. Once again, you'll learn why you're unhappy and how to change it easily. I'll start with the gut microbiome, so that those who don't have modafinil don't turn this off right away. A few years ago, I had my wisdom teeth pulled. It didn't go well. My whole mouth swelled up. To prevent inflammation, the dentist prescribed broad-spectrum antibiotics for 14 days. Okay, I thought I'll take a 10-day break from modafinil and it'll work even better after those 10 days. After 10 days, I took modafinil and nothing. In words, zero. I didn't feel anything at all. No big boost in mood or determination. So I took another one the next day and again, nothing. At first I thought I had some fake, but it was still from the pack that worked normally before. So I tried another day from a different pack, from a different batch, and again nothing. So I had time to think about what was different. Well, eventually I Googled my way to the gut microbiome. I bought a few kefirs and yogurts with kefir culture, and modafinil started working again for my mood, but it still wasn't as spot on as before. But it was progress. I repeated it with those kefirs, and after a while, about a week in terms of mood, modafinil worked like before. So I Googled further and found out that from the lactic fermentation of kefir, serotonin is mainly produced in the gut. And when you're low on it, you can, thanks to store-bought kefir. I bought kefir milk, which contains cultures like Bifidobacterium, Lactobacillus acidophilus, and Streptococcus thermophilus, replenish serotonin in about a week after antibiotics. This is how I actually tested on myself that talk about the gut microbiome isn't just talk. It really has a real basis, and that modafinil has an effect on serotonin. Further, I googled that for dopamine, the strongest bacterium is Enterococcus faecium, scientific abbreviation E1705. They found this bacterium in the guts of healthy babies and cultivated it from a Swedish baby and multiplied it. It's not in kefirs, nor have I seen it in dietary supplements. I tried to find out why, and the only mention I found was that it could be carcinogenic. Well, how many infants have cancer? Almost none, right? It's added to food for dogs and cats. So I bought that food and I didn't feel any serious side effects on myself. My drive partially returned, but be careful, it's really at your own risk. Find out how much you can take so that what comes to mind. Some bacteria don't overgrow in your body and you don't hurt yourself, for example, if you have a weak immune system. That leads me back to bro science. Today we keep hearing how young people aren't interested in anything and have depression. If it's not by chance because they have low serotonin. Today's processed food, colas, McDonald's have plenty of stabilizers in them so the food doesn't spoil and lasts a long time. But these stabilizers actually kill the bacteria from which serotonin is produced. Well, and a lack of serotonin means depression, procrastination. I'll repeat what I claimed in the last video and what I'll elaborate on in the next episode. The dark side of modafinil. The brain craves serotonin, and to get to it, it releases dopamine to itself, which turns off those unpleasant feelings and makes a person more decisive. It used to work so that if a person wanted to achieve something, a goal for which they were rewarded with serotonin, they'd release dopamine, which actually increases will and decisiveness. But that decisiveness is focused only on that goal, and that dopamine tries to keep them at that goal. If you can't get yourself up for some activity, it's because your brain wants to do something else and doesn't see it as a reason to reward itself with serotonin. It's not because you have low dopamine. You have plenty of that. It's dopamine that won't let you do something else. So if you actually had low dopamine, you wouldn't do anything, but you watch Netflix and other things over and over. The body actually rewards you for this activity with serotonin. And dopamine won't let you go from this activity. and modafinil is the solution. It raises both dopamine and serotonin, regardless of the brain. Suddenly you have enough serotonin in your brain and the brain doesn't demand more. So it leaves you alone and doesn't bother you with wanting more through sex, food, addictions. So modafinil turns off that craving and you still have a good mood and a clear head and plenty of dopamine. Well, and when you have plenty of dopamine and a clear head, then basically whatever you start, you'll finish. Because that free dopamine in the brain binds to this activity. Well, I got sidetracked, so back to how to use modafinil. Thanks to modafinil, you're now the general of your own life, and every general needs a plan, a battle plan. Ready for the charge. Let me start with a story. A while ago, I suddenly found myself in a bad mood. I started to doubt myself. Man, I thought, what's going on? Ugh, I don't want this, take it away. What is this? I don't want it. And then I remembered that this was actually my life before I discovered modafinil. You see, customs seized my modafinil and I ran out. I didn't have any for a month. So I said to myself, no way, I'm not putting up with this. I have to get more. Moving on, back to the preparation. Preparation is the key to success. Since the brain's increased use of neurotransmitters requires lots of energy and nutrients, let's start with this. Let's start with the timeline. It's Monday and you want to take modafinil on Saturday. So you have to prepare for it in advance. Since preparation is the foundation of success for most activities, let's start with the material supplies. So you need to get kefir, puddings, Actimel, sugar-rich foods, tyrosine, and just in case, have some baking soda ready too. Then the modafinil itself, 200 milligrams, headphones, get some motivational music ready, coffee, get some L-theanine, curcumin, baker's yeast, taurine, and then set up your environment because that's important too. So I'll start with the diet. Since we need enough serotonin, dopamine, and other substances, as I've mentioned, serotonin is produced by lactic acid bacteria, and you can support that production with kefir. If you look at how they grow bacteria in labs, they don't grow them in just water. They probably wouldn't take hold there, but they use something like agar for it. Well, pudding actually has a very similar consistency. And from my own personal experience and feelings, I've honestly noticed that pudding really does work best for serotonin. So I don't just eat probiotics, fermented vegetables, and all those well-known things, but I feel that sweet pudding really works the best. And to help wash down that delicious pudding, I like to drink some refreshing kefir milk. I basically eat pudding like this for 5 days. As a supplement, I also take those little Actimels from Danone that you can buy at Kaufland, and then I top it off with that dog I mentioned. I'm not on any diet. Personally, I think insulin pushes energy into the brain's reserves. Think about why sugar tastes so good to us. When I was on a keto diet, modafinil didn't work very well either. And probably the brain didn't have the right energy. And even people who did keto and tried modafinil didn't notice any significant effect. It seems to me that modafinil's effect is enhanced by a diet rich in tyrosine, which is then used to make dopamine. So eat plenty of eggs, meat, and ideally beans. Well, before taking modafinil, don't stuff yourself with anything, like you shouldn't be overfull. By using modafinil, you'll have elevated serotonin, dopamine, and also histamine. Serotonin actually moves food through the intestines, and dopamine affects the valve between the stomach and the intestine. Histamine increases the amount of stomach acid, and that bloats the belly. The body isn't very used to such a state. It's not a problem if you've eaten normally or have nearly empty intestines, but if you happen to be overstuffed, your body could, due to the dopamine that comes from taking modafinil, which also causes your body to release even more histamine from the food you eat, actually induce a state that is very similar to what is known as histamine intolerance. This can manifest as increased stomach acidity and also as itching. This particular condition is definitely unpleasant, but it is not considered to be particularly dangerous or life-threatening. What you will most likely experience is just a bloated belly, and it might hurt or feel uncomfortable for a little bit, but it should not be anything too serious. Not only is it unpleasant, but it also likely compresses the nerves on the brain-gut axis, the vagus nerve, the wandering nerve. Modafinil will stop working and you'll feel relief once your stomach starts growling in about 12 hours. If you do end up in this state, baking soda and an apple help, but so does a walk. The state of your intestines actually plays a role when using modafinil too. If you've had the stomach flu or similar illnesses, the effects of modafinil will be weaker. Just leave it for another time. Now let's break down modafinil itself. When two people do the same thing, it's not the same thing. In the European Union, as a prescription drug with the active ingredient modafinilum, this medicine is called Vigil in pharmacies. It's also sold under other brand names like Modiodal, Provigil, and Modafinil. I have Vigil, but I assume the situation will be the same for all of them. What am I talking about? Sometime around 2015, as I said, the European Medicines Agency banned the over-the-counter sale of drugs containing modafinil. At the same time, it ordered manufacturers to modify this substance. Original modafinil supposedly has the potential to cause addiction in some individuals. It's somewhat strange, knowing that this drug has no serious side effects, and those who need it, given their condition, have to take it daily anyway. While increasing the dose has no further effect, why fight against its effects when a sick person needs it daily anyway, right? Well, and so drug manufacturers in the European Union changed that modafinil. They put some kind of retardant in it, the onset of effects when you feel a surge in better mood, productivity, and so on. It kicks in with the European modafinil Vigil only after 10 hours. And it's far milder than with the original Indian modafinil. I think they somehow just limited the serotonin component of the original modafinil. The downside is clear. European modafinilum, doesn't have such a big boost effect, and you can't take it shortly before a given activity. If you need to work on the house from 7, say, you won't be taking modafinil at 11 p.m., so it doesn't make much sense to get these drugs as a work tool. A minor advantage of these drugs is the slowing effect. What am I talking about? After using Vigil, it happened to me that feelings of well-being were triggered unexpectedly on days when I didn't take Vigil. For example, 3 to 4 days after using Vigil, when it seemed to me that it didn't work much on the day of use. Then in the following days, as soon as I heard, say, some good song, those pleasant feelings came on like with regular modafinil, but weaker. But we want to use modafinil mainly as a work tool. Precise timing. So unfortunately, European modafinil is not our way. Bombard Brussels. We're looking for Modalert, Indian modafinil, good old 200 milligram modafinil. Or then another alternative is Ukrainian modafinil. Where and how to buy it, modafinil in general, I'll be saying in future videos. Okay, you've taken 200 milligrams of modafinil, and because other substances boost its effects, I'll say which ones and how. The main candidate is caffeine. To fully utilize modafinil's potential, you need caffeine. Those who don't drink coffee won't experience that main boost. Just a few seconds after drinking coffee and having taken modafinil before, it starts, but without coffee, the effects are weak. I'll repeat, coffee raises dopamine, and that's why people drink it without even realizing it. A classic crash like after pure coffee won't happen because modafinil keeps dopamine in the brain longer. You have to know for yourselves how much coffee you can handle. The more the better. Another thing is music. Music has a completely vital supporting effect on modafinil. Put on some motivational music or that music called rave with heavy bass and you'll see what you suddenly feel. Ideally loud in your headphones, it'll be almost unbelievable. But that's not all. Now, because modafinil keeps neurotransmitters in the brain for longer, and you're trying to maximize their release because modafinil actually retains them in the brain, and thereby you're actually increasing their levels. So you practically have the chance to find out which dietary supplements work and which don't, because you'll really feel it. with every dietary supplement within about 30 minutes. I won't drag it out. Curcumin and L-theanine boost those feelings of calm and happiness, like when a child comes up to you. After these 2 supplements on modafinil, you're much kinder. They don't work. 5-HTP, DMAE. I didn't feel any change at all. It's probably pointless to take them. Furthermore, it's interesting that I don't feel a bigger dopamine boost during cold exposure when I'm on modafinil. On the contrary, when I'm not on modafinil and I do cold exposure, I still feel a mood improvement for a while after. Well, back to modafinil. And next, it's good to prepare your environment. Modafinil is best used when you're the master of your own time. If someone else plans your time, when and where and what you'll do, you won't reach its full potential. You should have the freedom in what and where and when you do things. Creative thoughts will come to you, and you have to sit in an office, that's just useless. You'll feel like dancing, you'll be in a good mood, and it's best to dance when no one's watching. Furthermore, it's good for you to be well rested. Neurotransmitters are actually stored in the body's reserves mainly during sleep. You shouldn't try modafinil when you're after a night shift or a party. Simply put, you can't expect above average results from a below average action. And now I'll get to 2 other dietary supplements that aren't as well known in connection with modafinil, but actually work even without it. I'll start with yeast. About 2 hours after taking modafinil, take ordinary baker's yeast, a whole block. It contains vitamins B6 and B12, and those are essential for the production of serotonin and also dopamine. In half an hour, you'll really notice it on modafinil. A big, absolutely huge boost in mood and resilience. Take that yeast along with taurine. Taurine in turn serves for better transport of neurotransmitters. You'll often get into a state that I call singularity. Simply modafinil, caffeine, taurine, and drugs and the right music, and as soon as you raise your hands above your head, you instantly feel like you've grown wings. Your brain is filled with dopamine and serotonin. Once you learn how to use this properly, you're able to get into that excellent state for about an hour. You won't always reach it, but often, well, just enjoy it. You don't feel obstacles. Whatever stands in your way moves aside. You feel gratitude. You, fate, the universe, you are one. You have a sense of belonging with a higher power and so on. You feel like you're 20 again. You're in a state where you feel no resentment towards anyone, anything, yourself, family, work, your fate, surroundings. You feel like you have to raise your hands. And thank God for being able to be. You feel gratitude. Peace fills you too. Then you just go, stand up, and fulfill your goals. A true triumph of the will occurs, which I talked about in the first video. If you planned it this way, on modafinil, life gains its colors if it didn't have them before. Thanks to modafinil, you'll understand how your neurotransmitters work, adjust your behavior patterns, and realize that you want to have as many of those neurotransmitters as possible, and also in the right ratio. Dopamine, serotonin. You'll realize that until now you had too few, not enough for this world. Dopamine is will. Serotonin is peace. Oxytocin is love. You have a game changer in your hands, so you asked for a change. The universe, God, whatever you call this entity, has answered you. You wanted wealth and you got it. The next episode will be about the dark side of using modafinil. Basically, to put it briefly, this is about when to use modafinil and what not to do. And so I'll say goodbye and a bit of wisdom to finish. The shortest path to the goal is usually the hardest one. Charge.